Hey, join the club, man. Yada yada. We're here with HunterxHunter Nen Impact, and I've got some things to say, some good things, some bad things. This is just an overview of what I see, what I'm excited for, what I'm not excited for. First of all, let me preface this by saying I had not seen Hunter x Hunter until this year. Actually, I'd only just recently as a few months ago, finished watching the anime that came out a few years ago, and I like it. Nothing bad to say about it. Very cool anime. I should give the manga a try, but I'm kind of hoping that another anime series is on the way at some point because I'm really connected to that spoiler-free experience. Secondly, this game looks fun. It looks fun, and I want to start with a positive before I get into any sort of negative because it looks fun, man. If you like Marvel, if you like anime games in general, I see a lot of people comparing this to Dragon Ball FighterZ. What I will say is, while I get it because of the 3v3 format, a lot of people had not played a versus game until Dragon Ball FighterZ. I do understand. As well, this is an anime game using an IP that is very popular. People have grown up with this series, much like people have grown up with Dragon Ball. It's easy to make that comparison. What I would say, as someone who played a lot of Dragon Ball FighterZ the day it released and into its various seasons, is it does look like a versus game in a la FighterZ, but it does not handle, to me yet, like FighterZ. There was a lot of talk, if anyone was there for it, about how FighterZ wasn't really Marvel. People knew that they knew what a versus game was, but they really only knew it through the faculty of Marvel 1 or Marvel 2 or Marvel 3. The issue with that is that these are very different games fundamentally. There was a lot of very twitch fast reflex movements in Marvel, and while some characters floated, some characters moon jumped, as we say in Dragon Ball FighterZ, there was much more of an impact surrounding quick wave dashes, fly unflies, and neutral skips in the more traditional fighting game sense rather than like a super dash or something. Marvel was very explosive, assist reliant, neutral game, and while it was extremely difficult, you could not say that Dragon Ball FighterZ had the same type of neutral. Dragon Ball FighterZ neutral was pretty slow, all things considered. You could be really evasive, and characters sometimes couldn't stop you if they didn't have the right team set up right. I think if you were there, we all remember the Kid Goku who had a diagonal beam. It was one of the strongest things in the game, not because it would just blow you out every single time, but because it was a lockdown. So why do I say that? Why do I clarify? Am I just yapping? Kind of. I just want to tamper expectations from what I see currently. This game could change a ton in its release. I don't really know if there's a release date scheduled yet. Maybe that'll work to its benefit, discussing some of the negatives I have so far. But as the first positive point, yeah, it looks like a Marvel slash that Power Ranger versus game. If anyone remembers that, Battle Network, I think it was called, something like that. Battle Network, Marvel, some interesting neutral scripts. Kind of looks a bit like BB Tag in its neutral. The characters seem less floaty, but they do seem like they have some air options, obviously. So maybe like a BB Tag, much like 2XKO is more of a BB Tag than it is a Marvel. I think where people need to fall out of love with the Marvel comparisons for versus games, to me, until we see more. Right now, Marvel has become the go-to when comparing versus games, and it's hard to say we'll be seeing that when the characters move like they move versus like Magneto doing triangle jumps. Let's get into a first negative that I have, which is that because these animations are very fresh on my mind from the series, from the show, I've recently watched this series. I don't need to go back and compare. Like, this is in my mind still. Some of it does look well realized genuinely, but obviously there's so much room for improvement. This looks like a game from a last gen installment. I'm kind of hoping that these are just the early stages. Maybe these are just the early examples of something that'll be toned in the future. Like I said, I don't know if there has been a release date announced. I believe there hasn't. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I believe there has. And I'm hoping that we'll see plenty of that fighting game polish we've seen from most anime fighters in the recent memory. Like, you guys know, Guilty Gear Strive came out, it looks amazing. DFO came out, it looks amazing. Dragon Ball Fighters is arguably one of the best anime looking games ever, just period, full stop. Anime is back in the video game format in a big way, and Dragon Ball Sparking Zero is right around the corner as well. So for it to look like this, it makes me a bit hesitant, but ultimately, visuals aren't everything when it comes to a fighting game. I'd rather a fighting game look okay and be solid rather than be terrible but look amazing. I mean, I played DNF Duel. Sorry, I played DNF Duel. DNF Duel was but it looked great, right? Like DNF Duel is arguably one of the best looking fighting games, period. And look how people bounced off of it, right? One of the big positives, let's turn a negative into a positive. One of the big positives is this does confirm fully that this is a traditional fighting game. You might wonder why that matters when Dragon Ball Sparking Zero has garnered so much hype. Well, the thing about Dragon Ball Sparking Zero is, as of recording this, we do not know if Dragon Ball Sparking Zero will have a rollback. We don't know if online is a big factor for it. We don't know how it's going to play. We don't know if there's rematches. We really don't know anything about the online environment for that game. And guess what? Everything's online nowadays. If the online sucks for that game, it won't matter how cool Goku looks. You know what I mean? It won't matter how many characters are in it. People, despite it being emotionally casual field is arena fighters, they still want some competitive validity. Look no further than Naruto Connections, which has floundered in its release. No lobbies on launch. Connections are terrible. No one to play. Story is kind of ass. Like, if you take nothing else from this, knowing that Aiding has already produced games with rollback, I believe, just know that if you're a Hunter x Hunter fan, though it might not be the most faithful visual retelling of the series you love, more than likely you'll at least be able to play the motherfucker. Like, Naruto fans are cooked. JJK fans, are cooked. JJK got a terrible arena fighter. Awful. It, like, how do you make JJK, which is a series that's only upside really is its fights, how do you make that boring? They managed to. In this case, we got an actual traditional fighter that already looks like it has the seeds of other fighting games that are good. You know, regardless of what people think of how Marvel Infinite was handled with its roster being kind of and it's online, no one would look at you with a straight face if they played it and said, like, the mechanics here don't hold up. It's a solid fighting game. It's just sort of belabored by a lot of other resources going elsewhere when it came to Capcom during that era. I know some of the early reception on sites like Twitter and elsewhere have been a little sketchy, but let me just say to anyone who is a big fan of fighting games and Hunter x Hunter specifically, that even though the visual fidelity is kind of so far, that's stuff that can typically be worked out, whereas gameplay functionality is first and foremost when creating these games. I would much rather go into a new fighting game with the fun aspect, like, set in place rather than in contention. You know, we already got people reporting, like Jay Wong, who is like one of the greatest Marvel players of all time, that the game is fun. So just know that it might feel like a little misstep. Maybe you were hoping for Dragon Ball FighterZ 2.0, but with Hunter x Hunter characters. Keep in mind that we want to stay positive here when it comes to fighting games. We want to be excited for fighting games. You know, like if you like the video. Peace.